Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to have that talk. The 41, turning 41 talk. I'm going to admit, I've been on this planet since 1980, January 16, 1980. And I will say, as a youth, my biggest fear was growing old and dying. I remember checking out a book about mummies and seeing images of your body after it dies, decaying and rotting, and it scared the crap out of me. So I remember I was introduced to Peter Pan, the cartoon, the movie, and it taught me, you don't have to ever grow old. You could stay a youth forever. Just believe. Then I grew up in the area of the epic 80s where anything and anything was possible. It was all about dreaming, and seeing Michael Jackson go from being black to white, and then finding out later on as an adult how there was a groovy time when he had a fro and everything was trippy. I remember when Mr. Miyagi, aka Pat Morita, died. I was like, is that even possible? Mr. Miyagi's dead? Like, the immortal Mr. Miyagi? But I was like, you know what? I got into video games and I was doing martial arts. I was a scrawny 119-pound kid in high school, no weights. And then I decided, you know what? I want to get some muscles. I want to be like He-Man. I want to be a superhero, like Superman. So I joined the gym, thanks to my best friend bringing me into Fitness USA, which no longer exists, which is another topic I want to talk about in a minute. So I started working out, started getting mass, and next thing you know, I'm like 180 pounds, 140, 180. This is all after high school. I started weightlifting after high school. So then, my goal in middle school was to be able to do every single video game move that was in Street Fighter and Tekken. Like that character, I was going to do that move. It was all in the mind. Bruce Lee says, visualize and do. So that was my goal. So for the first, I would say from the age of 3, when I started scrapping, fighting in the yard, fighting people, bullies, to all the way through my karate club years in my teens, Then in my 20s, I started going dancing in 1996, the era of raves. I was a sophomore in high school, started going to raves, and I saw breakdancing for the first time. I saw it briefly in middle school. Some guy flipped off a chair, but in the rave scene was like, now I'm seeing actual breakers. I didn't even know what breakdancing was, really. I'm just that kung fu martial arts kid, that's at the rave trying to look for my dream soulmate, And I started dancing, and long story short, I started becoming a VIP dancer, meaning every club that I went to in San Francisco, I would pay one time for the first time. But by the end of the night, the bartender would say, hey, we like you. We want to make you VIP. That meant that I skipped the lines, never pay entrance fee, and they give me drinks all night. I don't drink and I don't do drugs. Always been a sober raver. So from being a raver teen, trying to figure out love, to trying to become the best martial, just being a superhero, bragging, show-off kid, doing every single amazing martial arts move there was. Because I've been watching Hong Kong Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee since I was a little boy. So all this incredible. By the time Mortal Kombat, the movie, came out, I was like, man, this is nothing. I've been seeing this shit since I was a little boy in the 80s. Mortal Kombat came out like in the 90s, like high school, Then there was that whole American Pie. Then I went to the Navy for a minute. Then I went to college, City College, where I was a cartoonist. I became a journalist and a cartoonist. And from the cartoonist, I started a breakdancing club. That's really when my life turned around. In high school, I got into peer resources. This guy named David Van Winkle, I met junior year, was so impressed by my ability to draw a conversation. He wanted me to be his peer resource guy, main guy. And I thought it was weird. Some older white guy has absolute faith in me, a youth. Unheard of. I grew up in a family where kids' opinions don't matter. It's all about elders. So that was the first big revolutionary thing for me. So then, just trying to grow, trying to figure out life for the first 20 years. I started my breakdancing club when I was 2003. I was 23 at the time. So pretty late to get into the breakdancing game, right? But here I am, awkward Chinese kid, don't know nothing about black people or socialization, starting a breakdancing club with one goal in mind: peace, unity, and fun. I heard that breakdancers are like gangs and all that shit, and I was like, no, I'm gonna have a safe club where people can just come, have fun. I was the school spirits kid. I was on the football team, the wrestling team, the track team. Where all people of all color just got together for one purpose, which is just to do that sports team. So here I was hosting a club. It was called Freddie Hung B-Boy Sessions. And Freddie was the cool teacher that I had, my art teacher. I knew he was the perfect sponsor. But anyway, moving forward, so then my 20s was the exploration era of me learning breakdancing. Then it trickled all the way through my 30s. 30 was when I was 28, when they decided to make my movie, Hung Dynasty, the movie. So by that time, I started breaking in 2003. By 2008, I had invested over 5 years of my life, which flew by real quick. Me going from being just Hung, that's Hung, the weird, awkward dancer, to that's hella Hung, to then figuring out what hella Hung was. By the time I made the movie, 2008, I had already been in the game for past 5 years. And Rob Nasty told me it takes about 5 years to become a B-boy. So at this point, I'm like, I'm established. I wasn't the best B-boy. I couldn't do every single power move. I still can't flare perfectly to this day. I've unlocked it once or twice, but haven't mastered yet. So I'm still that awkward breakdancer B-boy trying to do my own thing. But doing my own thing has been my the one thing in my life. I couldn't do it that way. So this is my version of it. And this is what works. The one thing that always got people with hella hung is the audacity. So now pushing 32, I would say, everybody, you are invincible up to 32. Like, my injuries would heal, no problem. But 32, I did this backflip off this chair, and my left knee never fully recovered, which now so I went to LA anyway. I had lost like about maybe 10% of my kicking range, which interfered with my ability to do proper footwork. But I was still able to do blow-ups, flip, and do all that amazing, crazy, wow stuff, So I went to LA at the age of 29. My favorite celebrity, Michael Jackson. If you were a kid in the 80s, Michael Jackson was magic. I came, the first time I saw Michael Jackson was just beat it. No one wants to beat it. I did the moonwalk and my mom was like, ooh. I think most kids did the moonwalk back then. But anyways, Michael Jackson was like, I remember going to Disneyland when Captain EO came out at the Epcot Center. Michael Jackson was just the Pepsi, like Michael Jackson doing the Pepsi Kid commercials. Like when you grew up in the 80s, Michael Jackson was like, wow. And then I was in summer camp in the 80s when Whitney Houston came out with the album, I Believe the Children are Our Future. Teach them well, the greatest love of all, And I remember being a kid, literally, in summer camp. It was fourth grade, summer of 4th grade, 19, whatever year that song came out, 80 something. It was like, that was the song. To then, in the 90s, again, in high school, Whitney Houston would come back as, and I will always love you. And I was like, at that point, I was like, Whitney Houston is the best. Mariah Carey's cool, but Whitney and Michael. And then we had Somebody's Take a Beautiful Girl and Hide Away from the Rest of the World, Cyndi Lauper. And of course, Madonna from Material Girl, Borderline. Papa don't preach just like a prayer. You are not what you see. To in the late 90s in high school. And I'll remember the way that you gave me. Now that I'm standing on my own. To me, that was my favorite song. It hit me here. You know. Then, of course, in your 20s, 30s, you're just trying to figure out love, finding your significant other. So for my first 20 year, as a child, I just wanted to play with toys. But I was a poor refugee kid, no money for toys. So as a kid, I just wanted to play. In my teens and 20s, I was looking for my perfect soulmate. I was introduced to Linda Carter at 3. So I remember watching Linda Carter and going, Mom, I don't know what that is, but that's what I want. A beautiful girl with a wonderful smile who's all about protecting that man. Absolute devotion. And at the time, I was taking for granted that my mom's a super mommy. Everything I wanted, food, my mom could cook, she could clean, she could sew, and she could draw. But one thing that my mom was the harshest critic I ever had. She's never compliments me on anything. She'd be the first to tell me what I'm doing wrong and what I should improve on. So as a child, I never really got like praise from my parents. I did get affectionate, like hug from my father when I was a little boy, but as I became teenagers and up, he stopped hugging me. And when my high school teacher started believing in me, that was something that was new to me. I've had teachers compliment and say, "Hey, Moy, your son, he's really good art. Look at what he did." So as a kid, I always had art skills, drawing-wise. But it was really trippy when Michael Jackson passed away. Mr. Miyagi, Mr. Karate here is gone. Michael Jackson. Wow. Michael Jackson. He died. With the godfather of soul, James Brown, which I was starting to get to know, thanks to Breaking. He had passed away right before Michael. Then Michael died. And then I came to LA, and I remember I was in LA for a couple of years, and then Your Purple Majesty, Purple Rain, I said a raspberry beret, Little Red Corvette, like Prince. Like I saw him at the Forum when he had that 50 tours where he was going to play all his old classic hits. I didn't understand politics. I didn't understand why Prince would not play his original hits. I was an outsider, but I was now a performer. I started dancing for Shannon. Let the music play. I met her through MySpace, and it was a trip. It was I think 2006. It was probably when I met. It was 2007, I think, because I got onto America's Got Talent. Yes, and then I had hit up Shannon. I guess she was following me, I guess. But then when I got onto America's Got Talent, after I did that, she's like, "Hung, when are you going to come dance for me?" And I was like, "I never heard anything." She's like, "Yeah, my manager is going to get in contact with you." Next thing you know, I give her my number. I'm talking to a manager, and now I'm performing at the annual sold-out Freestyle Explosion. This whole big concert that I've been hearing about all through middle school. I love freestyle music. My uncle used to rock all the mixtapes, But so I did that. I became a performer. I was trying to figure out what the limelight was, figure out who Hella Hung was. Then 2009 to 2019 was my pursuit of Hollywood. I was 36 when I re-injured my left knee. I was doing knee spins. I decided to become a straight street performer. So I was doing knee spins on the concrete with no knee pads because I thought I was invincible. Then one day I went down for a knee spin and my knee just said, "Screw you, Hung," and I couldn't get up. I couldn't stand up. And my knee has been talking to me since. So now I had 90% movement range. Now it was shot down to 15% movement range, which as a person who's a martial artist, feeling crippled, it was like, it screwed me. Like, whoa, what's going on? I'm the master of perfect kicks all through middle school and high school. So now for me to, I was trying to figure out how to do the split, but now to have my left knee not be able to bend and recoil, I wasn't able to fly anymore. And then everybody's like, "Oh, Hung, you're getting old. Can you still do it?" Hella Hung was like the era of 2003 to 2008. But now, 2010, you're too old, Hung. Those videos were old, whatever.